only, it's for this, for that, but they're really treating it like a threat. And one of the things that can't be attacked is your self-custody Bitcoin. And one of the things that can be attacked is the ETF. You can't be exposed to that. That's my view. It's not a good idea. And by the way, that'll hit MSTR too. It'll probably hit other stuff as well.
Friends and enemies, welcome back. Canadian Bitcoiners podcast.
Friends and enemies, welcome to the CBP. Wanna be better informed? Listen to Len and Joey. Sponsors taken care of right off the top. Bull Bitcoin and easy DNS. The media is feeding the slop. It doesn't matter what topics discussed. Quality entertainment and information you can trust.
That's being planned or at least discussed. You know, we're not going to allow
quality
people to buy
entertainment and information you can trust. Send the guy some value, boost them with some stats. Bitcoin is a scarcity asset. I mean, it's just a fact. Geopolitical, national, down to the local clown.
Hell of an intro, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies. Welcome to yet another edition of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. I'm Len. Joey is going to be on his way. He's just having a battle right now with his bowels. Let's see who wins that. Well, he is just about to join us, so I am not going to do it.
Fuck is going on? Fuck is going on? Good to see you.
You seem a few pounds lighter, Joey. You seem like you have a spring in your step.
This is an ongoing process, okay?
Evil wind that's been following you around.
I'm running knots right now on the lower half of my bowel here, so let's just see what happens.
Are you also filtering shit out to make sure that doesn't get through?
The filters are working. Yeah, they're working great.
Excellent. Welcome back.
What's going on? Thanks, buddy. Good to see you. How's things? Good?
Yeah, very, very good, Joey.
Good.
Nice day in Southern Ontario. I don't know where the heat is hitting, but at least in our neck of the woods, it's really nice. At least somebody like me likes it. So
yeah, got to be 45 with the Humidex, something like that.
You know what? When I boil water, it boils at 100. When it freezes at 0. It's not what it feels like; it's what it hits.
True.
That's
yeah.
So my car, the temperature, it's not what it feels like; it's what it actually is. So this feel like stuff, I like that. It's good and all, but the reality is, it's not for me.
Yeah. So good to see everyone. I don't know what Len has done yet. Probably not the ads. So maybe we'll start there.
Just started. You know, I waited for as long as possible, give you enough time.
I appreciate that.
Just get the wand and do a nice clean job over there. Get the hose.
I appreciate that.
Well,
let's do the ads. But Easy DNS is our what do you call Mark? A presenting sponsor, lead sponsor. He's the OG on this podcast. He's your friendly neighborhood registrar. If you want to start a new website, grab a domain, port a domain, Mark can help you with all that stuff. He's got all the best virtual private server options for the Bitcoin enthusiast. We talk about it all the time. BTC Pay Server, Nostr Relays, Bitcoin nodes. You can do it all over there. Plus line, easy mail, domain sure. And there's a few other things in the hopper too that you can grab for your domain for a couple extra bucks. Always worth it. We talk about the importance of these things on Axis of Easy all the time. And actually, Axis of Easy, Len, Bitcoiners now suddenly concerned about Bill C2, which we have been talking about over there in its different forms for, I don't know, a year probably. It was Bill C65 for a long time. Now it's Bill C2, and it's the same sort of data breach and overreaching that Mark can prevent from affecting you at some level anyway, over at Easy DNS. So go there, use the code CBP Media, get half off your first round of buys. Load up, man, buy a couple domains, and get started on your little portfolio with Mark.
What's the mempool like, Joey? Do you know what it is like? Is it good or bad? I just
the mempool.
I mean, off the top of your head, do you know if it's full or not? If it's
I'm guessing for next block transaction, it's 90 cents.
So the last block that was built, it had an average of 7 sats per V-byte. So I thought it'd be a little bit lower than that. It looks like the blocks are slowly filling up, which means when you buy your Bitcoin at Bull Bitcoin, you may want to start looking at other options besides just using on-chain. On-chain is still the way to do your buys and potentially sells, but Lightning is a solid way to do it. Lightning, we talked about it offline. No, I didn't talk about it. Somebody was talking about it.
Yeah,
it's the cleanest way and private. Like, good luck. Is it Tesnik was trying to figure it out, comparing it to a shitcoin called Monero, and Monero you could trace stuff potentially. Lightning you can't.
Yep.
So in terms of privacy, Lightning has you beat. So you could use that when you use Bull Bitcoin. You could do daily cost averages now with Bull Bitcoin. A lot of people are starting to do that because, you know what? I'm starting to see people use our code, and I'm liking this. People are using Bull Bitcoin because why? They're mission focused. They provide you the right service that you want. They're non-custodial. They won't rug you when you put your buy in. You got to provide an address to send it to. You You can pay your bills with Bitcoin. A lot of different things you can do. Check them out. Open an account. Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Europe, some parts of that.
Yeah.
And who knows what's next. Bull Bitcoin.
Pablo just did a couple of podcast appearances. I recommend people check out. One
Pablo.
with
He's a cool dude.
me too, man. He's out there grinding. He did one with the Your Life Your Terms guys. Anthony did one with them, and I just saw another appearance that he did that I haven't checked out yet. So I'm going to
Isn't he in
listen to
Prague?
those. He might be in Prague with some of the other Euro Bull guys. Good crowd, man. We love those guys over at Bull, and you guys will love them too. Len, boosts maybe, then some housekeeping. What do you think?
Yeah, I got only 4 boosts worthwhile to speak of. Owen, 350 sats, and it is an eggplant.
Love it.
An eggplant.
Yeah, everyone knows what that means.
Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. He writes, Len's in Vancouver. Beautiful BC baby. And I think this is with respect to me losing my keys. I was joking last week on a street that I cannot name. No, I'm not in Vancouver. I didn't travel to Vancouver ever in my life. I was just, trying to poke fun at a particular name of a city street. Now I can't pronounce it. I don't even know if Google Maps is going to pronounce it. Make a left on.
Yeah, friend of the show, Ken
what?
Sim, pronounced the name, I think, at a press conference last week. I didn't listen to it, but apparently it's not that hard. I mean, I'm still against the spirit of this move anyways, but at least you'll be able to say it when you call 911 because you've been stabbed with a syringe by a homeless man who's pissed on himself.
It's just the wait time. It may be too long. Toronto's having a huge issue with 911 wait times being much longer than what they should.
I bet.
And Doom Satoshi, 521 sats, does this twice. And both times he says the exact same thing. Thank you for your time.
Got you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's it for the notable sats.
Love it. Love it. Housekeeping, none. It's summertime. Let's get into the show. Where do you want to start?
Ooh, that was fast. It's going to be, again, a rather quick, I think, Bitcoin-related thing. Because with respect to Bitcoin, I think it's been overshadowed with what's going on in the world.
Sure.
So,
including, by the way, a ceasefire just announced minutes before the show started. So,
and that's what caused the spike.
Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about that after because I'm curious. But we'll lead off with that story I think you like to talk about because you and I talked about this briefly offline, and it's Coinbase. They filed with the SEC to allow them the ability to offer up blockchain-based stock trading. What is this? Right? Digitized stocks.
Yeah.
Right? It's a tokenized equities, right? It's a different way to compete against companies like Robinhood because Robinhood, they've been encroaching on Coinbase's territory by offering up Bitcoins and shitcoins. So don't know if this is a way to stick it to Robinhood or just a way to expand their influence and gain some more revenue. I'm pretty sure think it's the latter of the two, but either way, this is what you're doing. And I wonder what blockchain is going to be used. If something is going to have to be used in order to do it, it's going to be offering shitcoins on a shitcoin blockchain, I presume. And I even think that maybe, just maybe, the SEC would be the one administering it. I don't think it would be somebody like Coinbase or they would want it off to anyone. But that's just if they ever do decide this, because I find this story kind of funny too, right? Like the fact that Coinbase is asking the SEC's permission for this. We're both old enough, Joey. At least I am for sure. And I remember the SEC when they were being sued. Sorry, when the SEC was suing Coinbase. Sorry,
that was like 2 years. That was like 2 years ago. It wasn't even that long.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And why? Because they were operating an unregistered broker, right? And
the claim was that they were selling shitcoins that were ultimately securities. Yeah.
And what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? So anyways, this tokenized thing would be the first of its kind in the US. The SEC has to date never approved such a thing before.
Right.
And so the question then remains, end user, what's the benefit? Why would the end user want this? Like, what's the thing? I think, like Bitcoin, this has the potential to be traded 24/7. Right? Bitcoin obviously doesn't close. And if it runs on something, maybe potentially it could run 24/7. So you got to rush by the end of the day, end of close to sell or buy some Apple shares. You don't need to do that. This thing is going to run regardless. day, night, holiday, doesn't matter. And also there's potential for fractional shares. Now I know they already offer fractional shares, but they can make it potentially the unit bias even easier for people to onboard.
Really break down the pieces. Yeah.
50 cents for something like a share in Apple or something. Like, who the fuck knows? They can do whatever they want. And another thing is potentially this would be quicker settlement, right? Like depending on what blockchain they use, how they build it, how they use it, the settlement of that, it could be significantly faster than what it is right now. What we have right now when you go through the brokerage is what, T+2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So the settlement, the existing system is very slow. The alternative, which is being proposed here, and I'm reading, I'm trying to read between the lines here, it could potentially be much faster. Also overhead. Right now, the overhead, you got your brokerage, clearinghouse, bank, all your shit involved. You can eliminate all that.
Mm-hmm.
The overhead is then much less. It's the drawbacks, though. What's the drawbacks? It's a shitcoin, right? It is essentially, it's something. What sort of investor protection would people get? How much more would the Federal Reserve have to print in order to make people whole if something were to happen? Because shit does happen with these things, especially things that are brand new. Things break, things fuck up. There's downtime. Look at Solana. There's periodically that thing goes down. All it is just, it's interesting stuff. I would say that, which is a star. Buy Bitcoin and leave the shitcoinery behind. This stuff is interesting. I know you and I chat about it offline, but I don't know. I think it's just more of a buy Bitcoin mentality for me.
I don't think it's a shitcoin in the way that other stuff is a shitcoin. And when I think about what tokenized trading is, you did a pretty good job summarizing it there. It's a token that might represent one share, or half a share, 1/10 of a share, whatever they decide the denomination is going to be, on some accompanying blockchain network that is transparent. It's all the good things about blockchain, all the bad things too. Faster settlement. You're not worried about stuff like mining and whatnot on these private chains. So typically you're going to see pretty quick settlement times. It's 100% centralized. I don't think, I'll just address a couple of the comments that you made. I think some of them are good. I think some of them are wrong though. Like the one comment you made about, if something happens, how much more printing is going to need to happen to make people whole. I think the answer to that is none, because those shares have to be pegged to a stock at some level. So if you're suggesting that the SEC will let Coinbase trade paper equities, like I doubt that. Coinbase has done a lot of things that I think are detrimental to Bitcoin, but they so far have not been caught, at least, or been corralled by a bad trading day or a high leverage moment where price crashed and they had to do something that they shouldn't have otherwise had to do because of paper derivatives, for example. They don't seem to be doing that. So that's one thing. Other thing that I would say is that this is more interesting to me than just buying stocks. And I'll tell you why. If you can trade stock tokens with other people even if it's just Coinbase users, I think a lot of people will start using that in place of cash. If I was someone who was like buying lunch for a group and everyone had a Coinbase app and wanted to pay via the Coinbase app instead of a mix of PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, whatever. Here in Canada, it's even harder because if you're an American, you can't even use e-transfer here, unfortunately. So just a mess, right? But let's say you don't have a bunch of Bitcoiners there. You could presumably use Coinbase to settle the transaction with your friends and get that total value in stock token, stock token X or Y, which is interesting to me because I think a lot of people who talk about, it's the Bitcoin is a threat to the dollar, blah, blah, blah. I think that is true, but I actually think this is a significant threat to the dollar. That's even more immediate if they allow this sort of thing. A lot of people would prefer stock tokens to cash, especially if they're, tax efficient in some way. Like, is Coinbase going to offer tokenized stock trading in 401ks and IRAs? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Other thing I'll note is that Coinbase is at this point notorious for using the firepower they have on the legal side and the regulatory capture side to try and be the first mover and then yank the ladder up. I expect that to be the case here, but it seems to me like Robinhood and a few other places probably have this capability right now as well, as long as there's legal clarity around it, or as long as there's a guarantee that there's not going to be any action, which is one of the things Coinbase is asking for. Either you give us a no action letter or you give us exemptive relief to trade the securities. So that's another thing. You know, the question of custody is an interesting one because the SEC, I think we talked about this at work the one day. People don't realize the SEC actually owns every equity. They own every stock, everything. So it's like a sort of settling layer trading hub for every single equity. And you get a paper representation, of course, you know, as is the case in many of the different fiat games people play, not your certificate, not your stock, as the saying goes. So would they custody every token as well? Or would they set aside a certain number of stock certificates that were available for trade on Coinbase? If they did that, then presumably the stock would trade at a different overall price if the demand for tokenized stock was greater than the demand for stock certificates in the traditional sense. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but I like it. Honestly, I like it as a Coinbase shareholder, you know. No, not financial advice. But the other reason I like it is because I think, Len, that this is another kind of shot at traditional finance and specifically stuff like selling order books, right? And front running retail investors for pennies at a time, every second, every half second, whatever these guys are doing on Robinhood and Cash App and Wealthsimple. It's always in the terms of service that if you're a retail investor using these things, your order is submitted to the highest bidder basically, and they get to see everything that's coming in. Then they make a trade and they make a couple bucks off that. So, you know, you're taking a chunk out of that presumably. And also I just want to see more competition. We talk about this all the time from the bank side. TD recently, I think we talked about this on the show, started offering half share, partial share trading, whatever. Fractional shares is the term I'm looking for. And I went to try it out and they're still charging $10 for every buy and $10 for every sell. So like they're obviously not seeing enough competition. So you want to introduce more competition, and it's hard to make the case that you should pay $10 or any dollars or any cents on a basically, like you mentioned, zero overhead, zero capital invested blockchain transaction that's centralized. There's no need for miners, no need for anything else. You want that at some level. Now, I agree with you that your time is better spent just buying Bitcoin as opposed to like going to this second derivative equities option. You know, like I'm not just going to buy equities in Wealthsimple. I'm actually going to go download Coinbase. I'm going to get these equity tokens and then try and figure out how they work and what to do with them and stuff. I think that's maybe a bit of a stretch for now, but you know, what first move didn't seem unnatural at first.
It's
right?
not the unnatural thing. Let's talk. You spoke a lot there, and I just want to touch base on a few points.
Sure.
Is ETH a shitcoin?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Centralized?
Yeah.
Difficult to run a node?
Yeah.
Impossible to verify how many units are in circulation?
Yeah. Close anyway. Yeah.
Well, these are good metrics to figure out something is shitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, if this is run, like the way I believe it would be, would you be able to run a node to verify anything?
No, of course not.
Would you believe? Then
it's a stock, right? But like
by
there is controlled totals. There is intrinsic value in having shares of Apple, the company, or Microsoft, the company.
Some people have value in a single ETH. What I'm trying to get at is it checked off a few of those check boxes. To me, that's a shitcoin.
Yeah.
I can't verify, centralized.
Yeah.
Now let's just play this out, right? Say they go ahead with it. You have company, it's publicly traded. There's 100 shares out there, and now you want to have it tokenized. How these 100 shares get tokenized? Does Coinbase have to buy one share and then sell it to somebody that wants to buy it? And then tokenize it
well, this is the question. That's the custody question, right? But ultimately, there's going to be. I think the reason this is a question at all is because there's just no precedent for this. We've never tried this. No one's tried this before, right? So
you're right. But somebody's going to have to. There's got to be some mechanism to burn something to create something else, or else you're going to be creating more, and it'll be a paper thing, right?
Okay.
Right. There's got to be destruction of something and a creation of something.
Yeah,
else.
like there has to be control over the total issued shares, but that's for the company to deal with, right? The SEC and the company deal with that, and how they're tokenized is a different beast entirely, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's a risk in terms of like
Coinbase gets hacked.
Okay.
Hypothetically, Coinbase gets hacked.
Yeah.
I'm the hacker. I go into your account. I take whatever you have there. I liquidate it into something else. Now I have it in Bitcoin. You can't take it from me. Now you could take away now I sold those tokenized shares to somebody else, to a third party. What are you going to do? Rip them off? Make you somebody's going to have to be made whole here.
I mean, it's the same thing you would do.
Yeah, it's going to have to come from the federal.
Okay, so this is the printing you're talking about. Yeah, is there more potential to like have to fill a gap because someone's Coinbase accounts gets hacked? Like I guess, yeah, that's a fair point. But I don't know how much, like, you know, that gap that you're talking about between the amount of dollars being printed now and the extra amount that would be printed if there was a Coinbase hack after a year of trading equities. Like, it's just not it's a statistically insignificant number compared to what's going on.
100%. It's just another drop in the bucket, or it could be quite a bit. In terms of the value of the overall trading market versus the M2 out there, there's a significant percentage there. I'm not going to say it's all going to go tokenized, but there's potential that a lot of it can, because as we said, less overhead. You could trade 24/7. There could be fractional shares. There's a lot less friction going to that way. And then if that's the case, if you get a lot of equity flowing in there, then that's a significant percentage of the overall M2, that's USD M2 that's floating around.
Yeah.
And then that's what I'm trying to get at, a hack. And if somehow Coinbase or Fidelity or whomever is doing customing this stuff or doing the issuing, it's a honeypot. And if you have a honeypot out there, you're going to have attackers coming in different ways. Eventually, their fortress right now that's been able to hold off all these attacks will eventually fail. It's a central entity that's holding on to shit.
Just looking quickly here, because I don't want to say something that is incorrect. There is a precedent for this. Binance started doing tokenized stock trading in 21 in non-US markets of US stocks. Yeah, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft. Binance partnered with CM Equity AG, a regulated German financial institution, to custody the underlying shares. So there's your custody answer. There's a third party holding them. Each tokenized stock was backed 1-to-1, and users could buy fractional shares up to 1%, so 0.01, making it accessible to retail investors. Yeah. So the other example of this is FTX. Obviously, we know how that turned out.
The big factor here, the big variable is the SEC, and they want to control as much as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, they want eyes.
Yeah, for sure they're going to want as much oversight as possible, and I can understand that. If I had that type of control that they have, I wouldn't want to let loose.
Well, they need it. They need that control over the equity market, because if there's any market where there's more scammers than altcoins and shitcoins, it's in public equities. There's no doubt about that. So.
That's the central node that's going to be running it. I can't see them.
I don't have that big a problem with them running, like, as long as they run it with the same sort of the same what's the word I'm looking for? The same level of competence that they run the trading options now. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't think it's that important.
A central bank running a CBDC where they have proof of authority, that's the way they run things. This would be the very similar thing where they could essentially do what they want. They could nullify a transaction or
I'm not saying those concerns are not. Yeah, I'm not saying those concerns are not valid. I just think they're out on the curve is all. That's a bit of a right curve risk. That's our right tail risk, I should say. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think the two things I would tell people is, you probably don't need tokenized securities because you have a lot of the same flexibility in apps like Wealthsimple already. Wealthsimple even introduced 24/7 trading a little while ago on a lot of equities. So there's that.
You can? You're allowing?
Yeah, I can go on right now and sell, like, I think it's like probably the top 100 S&P companies. For sure, it's like half the stuff I own, Apple, Microsoft, Google. You can sell and buy and sell this stuff after hours now for free. There's no additional cost to me. I'm sure someone somewhere is getting my orders, but we already talked about that. The second thing I would say is that you have to imagine that people who are coming to Coinbase for stock trading are going to wind up buying Bitcoin at some point, because they're going to see that price flash in front of them all the time on the app. They're going to see all the gains. They're going to see all the stories about this stuff. And, like Len and I, and probably like many of you, you start off trading stocks in a currency that you think is valuable, and before you know it, you realize that it's not what you thought it was. And you wind up in Bitcoin at a level you didn't think was responsible when you started, but now you think is the only responsible way to handle your finances. So I would say that this is another opportunity for new entrants to find.
Yeah, potentially capturing a new audience.
Yeah, because Coinbase flashes that price all the time. I should have downloaded the app and had a look and see what that interface looks like these days. Because I remember when I had it years ago, the first thing that flashed to you was the Bitcoin price. So, I mean, if you're looking at that every day and one day it's 60K and then 3 months later it's, 110, that's going to raise some eyebrows, right? And people might start buying that. And I think that's a reasonable expectation. But again, what I don't know is where these people who are coming to buy tokenized stocks are coming from. That's the one question I have for Coinbase. They seem to be missing, I'm speaking as a shareholder now, criticism as a shareholder. They seem to be missing a lot of low-hanging fruit, and they're going for stuff that, I think their board and their internals would say is really, big innovative jumps, and some of them might work, but so far, I mean, you had Base, you had the NFT marketplace, you had a few other things that seemed trendy and good and smart at the time that just fell flat. And now you're going to try and do tokenized stocks. You're not going to be the only game in town. Robinhood has been preparing for this too, like I said, and there's probably other exchanges and apps that I'm not even thinking of that have been preparing for this as well, but just don't have the legal firepower to take on. I shouldn't even say take on, to engage with the U.S. government, because you're not really taking on the government anymore. It's like they just wave you through. It's like that meme of the guy checking people at the door. He's not even touching them. That's how the SEC operates these days. It's the Gensler days are long gone. So anyway, as a shareholder, I think this is like, it's not the easiest way to add profits to your books, that's for sure. But if it works, it'll be gangbusters. We'll just have to wait and see.
There's a good story on Reddit I want to bring up. A guy named Apprehensive File 552, and he wanted to buy a hard asset, right? Because he sees his currency being devalued. I believe he lives in Australia. And so what he did, he went out, he bought 2 gold bars, each from a different seller on eBay. And each gold bar was 1 ounce. So that's the range of $1,600, I don't know, something like that, USD.
No, USD is, an ounce of gold is 3,400.
Yeah, so the 2 ounces.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, you bought 2 of them. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
quite expensive. That's a big buy.
6,800.
Yeah.
And so it turned out after some analysis, I don't know how he fucking came up with this analysis, the gold was fake. Right, he bought it on eBay, spent 6,700 USD, decent amount of cash. And this is essentially why I Bitcoin, right? Because with Bitcoin, if somebody sends me Bitcoin, I could verify it with very little resistance. I have my laptop, which runs it, my node is 15 years old, give or take. It takes pennies to run every day, and so that's how much it costs for me to verify every transaction. Bitcoin's proving itself to be superior in so many ways. And this is another way, because I could verify it easily. I could move it across space. Doesn't matter how far, sometimes for pennies, sometimes for dollars. I don't need to hire security guards to protect it. And I'm hoping that Buddy learned a lesson here. He seems like he wants hard assets. Hopefully he learned a lesson that there's something better out there, and maybe we have another Bitcoiner that's born. I saw this story. I was like, why just buy gold?
Not that hard to test an ounce of gold, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, because an ounce is not that big. It's not that big a unit. So what you would do is basically get what's called like an acid board. And we used to do this all the time at the pawn shop. So I'll give you the quick rundown. Let's say you get like a board, okay? There's like a little black board. And what you do is you rub the gold on the board, okay? Until you leave a nice big line. Then you do another big line next to it. Another big line next to it. You might do 4 of them, okay? Most of the time you do 4, if you don't know what carat the gold is. And in the kit, you get 4 or 5 acids. One is for 10 karat gold, one is for 14, one is for 18, one is for 24. And what you'll find is that as you move through the acid grades, the gold will stop disappearing when the acid touches it. The acid will no longer erode the gold that's been left on the board. That's how you know what carat the gold is. So presumably what this guy did was leave a bunch of scratches, use the 10 karat, and the 10 karat acid just kept erasing it over and over and over again. So interesting. I will note that I didn't see the story, but I think I've said this on the show before. The definition of gold actually varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction. A lot of people don't know this. For you and me, Len, we're Italian. Most of the gold I own, was gifted over the years is 18 karat. Like my chain is, I think my chain is, maybe it's 14 actually, but my ring is 10.
This says 99.99% pure gold.
So that's 24 karat. Should be 24 karat that he bought, right? Some places offer 8 karat gold, which is not legally gold in the United States, Canada, and a few other places. But in Ireland, for example, it used to be legal to sell 8 karat gold. That's a lot more nickel and other metals than it is actual gold. So it's a hard gold, as the saying goes. Your gold is more soft and malleable the closer you get to 24 karat, and the closer you get to 0, which is, by the way, just a percentage. So 24 to 24 is 99.99. That's the math, basically. And then as you go down, 22, 18, 10, etc., are all different percentages of 24, and that's where you get that 3-digit number. So anyway, a lot of places don't even allow 8 karat gold, but some do. And so some places are still producing 8 karat gold, which if you brought to a shop here in Canada or in the United States, you'd be, told this is nickel, basically is what they would tell you. And they may buy it, they may not, but the smelting cost, the scrap cost is more than the worth of the gold, basically, is the story there. So anyway, little gold info for you. I agree. I would not be buying ounces of gold unless it was from a bank. That'd be the only place I buy, or Costco, I guess. I trust Costco. Costco will probably let you return that gold in 3 years if you decide you didn't like it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? Because then they'll still be able to resell it, right?
Yeah, be up in value, probably.
Right. I was thinking about gold, and aside, there's a case use for it in industrial settings.
Yeah,
right? For your phone, and like Bitcoin obviously doesn't work. There's no physical.
The use case for industrial gold is basically, as a percentage of the value prop, it's,
right. 100%. But there is so I'm just trying to think what's the value of gold? Not really what's the value, what makes it desirable to own. But I think it does one thing, and it does better than Bitcoin. I have to admit this. Stealing Bitcoin and large quantities of Bitcoin is, I think, for sure, it's easier than stealing large quantities of gold. So hypothetically, if you have amassed a great deal of wealth, like the Federal Reserve, or is it the Federal Reserve or the Treasury that owns the gold in Fort Knox? Either one.
The Treasury.
The Treasury. So they own it. So if that was in Bitcoin, theoretically, in one address, you could steal it all really quick. They would obviously put in multiple addresses to make it harder to steal. But still, stealing all that gold is physically impossible without really an army. But Bitcoin, in terms of stealing it, it's a lot easier to do. So with respect, that's I'm going to say is gold could be better. It's harder to steal vast quantities of gold than it is Bitcoin. Other than that, Bitcoin wins.
Yeah, I agree. And I think more and more people are waking up to that. I haven't looked at the price since this ceasefire. Before when I was pinching a loaf there, I was looking 105,000,
it almost hit 106.
And by the way, the gold price didn't really react to that instability the way that you might think it would have. The gold guys say a lot that this is a weird argument they make, and I don't know if I agree with it or not. I haven't looked at the price history, and I don't know that much about how gold trades during geopolitical turmoil. To be perfectly honest, I haven't done that research, but a lot of the gold guys say that during inflationary times, the reason gold didn't rise is because gold is actually a political turmoil hedge, an uncertainty hedge. And then when times are uncertain, you have war in the Middle East, nuclear sites getting hit, president making a speech 10 p.m. on a Saturday, gold doesn't move either. And then they say, well, gold has already sniffed out this issue and price is already there, and it's actually waiting for the next inflationary impulse to make it it's Schrodinger's gold case, basically. And every time there's a one or the other situation, the opposite situation is what the gold bugs say they're waiting for. I've seen this a bunch over the last year because there's obviously been tons of geopolitical turmoil and tons of inflationary impulses. So I don't know.
Well,
make of that what you will.
Trade on a weekend. When this
gold doesn't trade Saturday, but it opens Sunday night with oil, with everything else. When commodities open, it opens with them.
Is that because it opens overseas somewhere?
No, it's I think it's a Chicago Merc exchange, right? I'm pretty sure.
The Merc.
Yeah, Mercantile Exchange. I'm pretty sure that's the one that commodities trade on. I'd have to, someone can fact check me on that, but I haven't looked at that in a long time. I do know it opens on Saturday or Sunday night though, Sunday at 7 or 8, depending on what time the market's closing based on daily savings time, et cetera, et cetera. That's Eastern Standard for me. I don't know what it is for everybody else, but
I'd put I time locked my corn in my title here.
Nice.
Because, well, and it's leading up to this next story, because the reality is people should learn how to time lock their Bitcoin. $5 wrench attacks, or whatever it costs these days to buy a wrench to make some damage, is becoming more prevalent these days, because if people that own Bitcoin, well, you're going to be a target, right?
Yeah.
So if you time lock it, it's locked away. There's a story about this guy, 23-year-old dude in France, and he suffered this past week on Tuesday, so last week on Tuesday. But he was abducted by kidnappers, and they had provided specific demands to his family in order to release him. And in order to release him, they wanted two things. One, 5,000 euro in cash.
Yeah.
And the second, they wanted to hand over the ledger device that he owns.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it's unknown how much Bitcoin or shitcoins he has on that ledger. But remember, not too long ago, we also had the co-founder of Ledger. He was kidnapped, and remember they cut off his finger?
Time is flying by. I actually don't remember that, but maybe
this happened late last year.
Okay,
that this happened, and this is becoming. You see more and more of these stories coming forward. Not to say that it's rampant, but it's becoming, as I say, like if you have Bitcoin, people know it. You're becoming a public target. Liana Wallet, Liana, is one that you could learn how to, or you could use to time lock your Bitcoin. You could attach that to your to your cold card and everything. So it works like that. It's open source, the whole 9 yards. Check it out. Learn how to time lock and do it. So that way, there's just no way you can physically move the Bitcoin or digitally move the Bitcoin until a certain time has passed, a certain amount of blocks have been passed. And by doing so, your Bitcoin is protected. So that's all. It's more of a public service announcement. Learn how to time lock your corn.
So wizardsardine.com/Liana, I think, is the website. And if you're ever questioning, how much do Joey and Len really know about this stuff, you'll remember the first time we heard about this on the show was from, I think, Mr. Arnome, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. He came on. He was the first person to tell me about it. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. So if you're looking for... if you are trying to outsource some of your thinking, I don't recommend that, obviously, but there's not really a better guy than Mr. Arnome. I don't think, like this guy has been around. He's, maybe I'll call him an extremist, but I like him and I think he's an honest actor, which is those are the two most important things, whether I like somebody and whether I think they're honest. At least that's my metrics for deciding whether or not I should trust somebody or look into something they're doing. And the Liana wallet's like a nice UI too. Nice, easy GUI. The process for time locking itself is a fun learning experience, and I recommend maybe not going all in with anything at first. But that's the case for everything, right? Don't time lock anything you're not willing to lose, and try it out and see how you like it. I can't recommend it enough. The idea that you're going to subject yourself. We joke about this all the time on the show, okay? That Len and I take security very seriously. Not so seriously that we're not putting our faces out there, but knowing my face or picking me up somewhere is not going to be enough to get my Bitcoin. Because I've been around long enough to see these attacks over and over again. Len's been around long enough to see these attacks over and over again. It's going to be a lot more difficult than that. And I think the more that Bitcoiners start appreciating this, and also, Len, the ease with which you can basically take yourself off the target list, more people are going to do it. I don't see why not. And as the world becomes more and more dangerous, thanks to certain policies being enacted all over the place, I would say to people that this is something that's non-negotiable. You have to have a second layer of protection to your Bitcoin to prevent the wrench attack. Wrench attacker's not that bright, okay? And so what you don't want is to wind up in a situation where you're trying to reason with somebody that just doesn't care what you have to say. If the stuff is locked by code, it's not up to you. It's not up to them. And that's all there is to it. The party's over before it even starts. So to me, it's like, think about doing this. Think about learning about it, then think about doing it, And there's tons of resources. Liana has some good resources on the website, and I'm sure there's other stuff out there as well.
I got a beauty of a story here, Joey. This is a good one. It's comes from Jasper County, Texas. Never heard of this place, but it's just northeast or northwest of Houston. And a family over there was duped into paying some $25,000 USD in Bitcoin to a scammer. And how this was stuff was, it's the stuff of fucking absolute legend. And the scammer claimed to be a government employee, and the family owed some 25K in fines. Right, so he was able to convince them. You guys owe some fines. We need 25K to settle it. All right, in Bitcoin, by the way. So they told the family to go to their local Bitcoin ATM, and it was in this case it was called a Bitcoin Depot ATM. That was the name of it.
Good name.
And yeah. And they managed to deposit 25K into that fucking machine, and the Bitcoin was sent to the address provided by the scammer. And they realized they were had. That shortly thereafter, they contacted the police. You know what happened? This is fucking truly interesting. The sheriff came by with the power tools, fucking cut the thing open, and recouped the money that was put in. Right, it was 25K. In fact, $32,000 was recouped in total. So around $7,000 was purchased by other folks out there. This seems rather a very popular Bitcoin ATM. But what's fucked about all this? The money, the 25K that the family put in, they gave it back to the family. Like the police gave it back to the family. But unless I got my facts wrong, right?
You absolutely hate when people who get conned get their money back.
In more than one, because there's a victim here. Yeah. And the victim is the Bitcoin ATM company.
Yeah.
Because they're in the short end. Yeah. They're the ones that sent the Bitcoin to the address. So they, in terms of their obligation, they fulfilled it.
Yeah.
The scammer got their Bitcoin. The idiot family got their money back. But these guys who should have collected the $25,000 US to have facilitated this transaction, they're out. They're out quite a bit of money. What a fucking stupid story. Who the fuck has $25,000 cash just sitting around?
You can't get it out of the bank, I'll tell you that.
They had it to begin with. So what the fuck are they doing? And not only that, they were convinced that they had to pay a $25,000 fine. So what are they doing? They must be doing something shady. For somebody to have easily convinced them, you got to pay 25K. What the fuck is this, man?
This is a funny story. Okay, number one, how would you not know that you had $25,000 in outstanding fines? I would have loved to have heard what those fines were for, according to the scammer. Like, well, how many parking tickets? How many outstanding water bills or whatever? Like, how is it possible that they thought they owed $25,000 to the local government? That's a story all on its own, number one. But number two, the Bitcoin ATM company, I don't know what the rules are here, but I do know that, there's attempts to stop scams from happening. For example, when you go to Bull Bitcoin to buy, what does it ask you before you get your buy down?
Address.
Is this an address that you have? Are you sure this is your address? Like, all these questions. And Bull used to have like a full page banner on the old website. Scammers are trying to get your Bitcoin. Make sure that this is an address you control, that this is not a scam address, that you are not getting had, that you are not getting socially injured, whatever, right? They had that stuff. ShakePay, same thing. They have the same shit on their website. I bet you Adam O'Brien over at Bitcoin Well has a screen on his ATMs that says, if this isn't an address you control, do not send your Bitcoin here. Make sure you're not getting scammed, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin Depot, I'm guessing, has the same thing, unless they don't. And then my question is, what's the law around that? If there is a law that says you have to have that warning screen, or that the ATM owes some level of diligence, warning screen or something similar, and didn't perform that diligence, and so owes the money, then maybe it makes sense. Otherwise, Len, I'm with you. And we are redundant on this topic. I think that the ATM company gets the short end of the stick. The guy who made the mistake is reimbursed and does not learn a lesson. And the scammer makes out with the same value in Bitcoin anyway. So a lot of winners here, but the ATM company, not one of them. That's for sure.
Another scam that took place, or it's more of a hack, in Iran. Now, I know there's other things going on in Iran. They've been taking it on their chin quite a bit this past week. But
yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah, sure.
One of their exchanges over there was hacked.
Yeah.
And the exchange is called NoBitX. And apparently this is the first Iranian digital asset exchange market for trading Bitcoin and the top altcoins with IRR, they say. This is according to them. So there was a hack that took place. $48 million was siphoned from the exchange on June 18th. So this is A custodial exchange, people are trading or buying and just leaving it there thinking that it's safe. This is a perfect indication why you should not leave your Bitcoin anywhere. I like Bull Bitcoin because it's not custodial. You take it, it's immediately sent to your address. Never trust anybody to hold on to your Bitcoin. In terms of the 48 million that was siphoned, this was 7 million users were impacted. And you know, Iran has about 91 million people over there. That's including children and, you know, the very old.
Did Ted Cruz tell you that?
I just checked Google.
Oh.
I mean, I'm basing that could be wrong.
Do you not know that meme?
No.
Tucker and Ted Cruz. Tucker asking Iran how many people live there, or asking Cruz how many people live in Iran. He's like, I have no idea. And Tucker's like, you want to invade a country you don't know the population? You don't know anything about it. It's like,
you know, with respect to, does it really matter if the U.S. wants to invade?
Obviously, it doesn't fucking matter.
They got the fucking firepower to nuke everybody into oblivion.
It doesn't matter.
But you know, there you go. So I know more than 91 million people. So, anyways, apparently it was a pro-Israeli group that is claiming responsibility for this attack, and it's just another one of these stories. You hear about them all the time. Don't use any exchange that is holding on to your Bitcoin. I mean, if you do use one of them, just pull it off right away. Don't keep your Bitcoin on there. Don't trade. You're just asking yourself for fucking really problems in the end.
Yeah.
Put your Bitcoin cold storage on keys that were never generated in a place where it was touching online, always offline, all that bullshit. Mm-hmm. You're good. That's the way I do it. I sleep well at night, but you know, everybody do what you want. Eventually you get burned. And at that point, like you say, you touch the stove when it's too hot, then you learn. But I'm trying to teach you from, you know, other people's experience. Learn from them. Let them pay the price, and you'll benefit from that.
Incredible. Sharing the knowledge. Yeah.
You know, and I have to give you, and I don't want to bring this up again because it may hurt, but you remember a long time ago, you set up your cold card with not very high entropy.
Oh yeah, I remember, of course.
And I don't want to get into this, but I have to give credit because you brought up that story. You were forefront, and that was something like I learned from that. I learned, my God, when you set up your fucking cold card, make damn sure.
Spend time, man. Spend time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan of learning from others because that way I don't have to pay the price. So that, and I'm trying to use that example for this. Look at these people that fucking got ruined as a result of it. So don't do them.
I think you're 100% right. And I'm glad I shared that story too. I think
I am too.
I think it turned out to be pretty important for a lot of people. And, you know, it's important not only to share those stories, but to pay attention to when they're shared and not just go on Twitter and, you know, dunk on people, because you never know what mistake you will make in a rush, what mistake you will make when you're not paying attention, what mistake you will make when you're on autopilot. I mean, you know, how many people are driving every day on autopilot and make an error and don't even realize, you know, when they made it? You know, the sort of best thing to do to demonstrate this point, if you ask somebody about their drive to work, okay, my drive to work is like 10 minutes long, let's say. If you ask somebody about their drive to work, do you think they'd remember anything about it? Anything. They wouldn't remember anything about it because they're so just zoned out on autopilot that they're not thinking about the turns, the signals, the time they had to brake a little early, time they broke a little late, time they, you know,
it's something that's a bit of the ordinary for you to remember.
Exactly. And so once you start operating in Bitcoin at that level, you are on autopilot as well. And it's important that you don't wind up on autopilot in this thing. Because if you do, you will wind up hastily setting up a cold card and giving away, you know, what's probably now, Len, I don't know, 20 grand, something like that. It's got to be a big number. And so, you know, I'm pissed about that. But that mistake, you know, when the fact that it happened when it happened saved me from doing it again and saved me from having other people do it. And so I'm better for it. But yeah, at the time, it was fucking annoying. It was a big time issue for me. And I told a few other people in my personal life and they're like, oh, Bitcoin's a scam. Not like more hassle, right? And so, just, you know, take your lessons when they happen to you. And of course, take them when they happen to somebody else. It's invaluable and it's free advice.
100%. And I don't want to say it was a good thing that happened to you, but if it did.
It was a good thing. On the whole then, like, yeah, it's a net negative in the moment, but how could it not be a good thing on the whole? that was
Yeah,
that was
I
like
think
4 years ago or something, right? Like it was a long time ago now.
In the long run, I think it helps you, because imagine if you were putting like more and more into that, and then eventually your stack was. So yeah, it's good to go through this early on, and so people out there learn how to set up your cold card correctly.
Yeah.
I have a couple of stories, but I think we have time for one more. I can't believe we
For sure.
This. It was much longer than I thought it would be. We have tariffs obviously being imposed on China, Canada too. The United States is imposing it. And so one casualty of this tariff war are ASICs. It's something we don't really think much about, because the majority of these, they're coming from Chinese-based companies like Bitmain, right?
Yeah.
And so these ASIC companies, they're trying to circumvent the tariffs, at least the tariff barrier, by setting up shop within the United States and creating production facilities in the United States. So that's really cool. And that's, I'm looking at that, and it's not just getting around tariffs. There's other benefits too. When they manufacture it there, think about it, the majority of their sales are to the United States. So in terms of shipping and storage, it's much less because you're shipping it locally, and the lead time is going to be much shorter. So it's a lot better if it's done over there in the United States.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, in terms of the manufacturing though, like how much is going to be done in the United States? Or the chips going to be assembled somewhere else? Because I think TSMC is the one that does the chips right now. I don't think they're going to, unless the chip axe is going to be moving stuff over. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts here that I just don't know. But these ASIC companies, they do want to set up manufacturing within the United States, which I find to be cool. Maybe there could be a time in the future, I don't know, they could just take it. They can nationalize it, right? If they really, if they look at, either United States looks at Bitcoin, or more importantly, I think China as like an adversarial and like somebody that's just an enemy, and things really go south, they could take this and take it for themselves and utilize it for them. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of different things that could happen as a result. Probably not. Just food for thought more than anything else.
I want to see what happens with these tariffs in terms of like the new incentives that are going to drive manufacturing jurisdictions and materials used and things of this nature. It's funny, like people don't realize that incentives were such a huge part of the life that Americans enjoy now, in a way that they just had no idea about in the past, specifically when it relates to military. Like, for example, okay, I just found this out a little while ago. Do you know where and why Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley in the United States? Fighter jets in the early American military were having trouble with components melting during flight missions. And so they had to come up with a material that was both strong enough to withstand the heat and also served their purpose in terms of circuitry and electronics and whatnot on board the ship. They ended up doing that with silicon. And so silicon became the hub and the sort of backbone for the technological revolution. It started in America because fighter jets needed it so that they didn't melt during missions. Ended up becoming the center of computers and whatnot, right? And so when you think about stuff like, okay, I got to manufacture something that's exempt from tariffs and I might have to use different materials or whatever. Like, that's how revolutions in technology start. Not Tim Cook giving a speech about, Apple Glass or whatever. Not Palmer Luckey talking about, the newest, latest, and greatest in fucking napalming brown kids 100 million miles away. Those are part of it, but the real revolution starts based on necessity. And necessity is the mother of invention, as people like to say. I think that, we kind of forget about this stuff. And some of the greatest stories in American ingenuity and innovation came from the weirdest starting spots. And who knows, Len, maybe this is going to be a weird starting spot. It's still so early. Like, these tariffs are what, 100 days old, 60 days old, something like that. When was Liberation Day? Was it in April? Was it in May?
I can't even remember now. It seems like so long ago.
It does seem like a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it was only like 6-7 weeks. So I don't know. Like, that's, talk about being early. You're early on this. Let's see what comes from these tariffs, taxes, and late night press conferences from DJT. I think you never know what's being born around the world as a result of these policies.
I think that's it for the Bitcoin stuff.
Sure. Okay.
I think it was much longer than I thought we wouldn't. But I even have
good session. Good session. It was good. I'm glad you started while I was taking a shit. I'll explain some more about that in the second half of the show.
Oh, I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Come back tomorrow if you're on audio, if you're on video, or with us live. Don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere, and we'll be right with you.
Yeah, and please time lock your Bitcoin. Do that.
Good job. Yeah, so I started taking like Athletic Greens, not that brand, but like, I don't know, months ago, and then kind of forgot about it. And a sale on Amazon popped up on my feed a couple of days back. And so I got the bottle today and took a shot of it at like 3 o'clock, way too late in the day. I got to do it in the morning so that I have a dump at like 1 or 2. And yeah, that's why I ended up on the can there pretty late, just all of a sudden.
Does it turn into water? Is it like that type of thing? Or
you put it, it's powder. You just put it in water and drink it. Yeah.
No, but like ultimately in the end, what you're.
Oh, no. It's solid. No, it's solid. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a fucking.
That's like, magnesium? Or is that what I'm thinking? Or?
No, it's just, it's like vegetables, basically. It's like leafy greens ground up. I take a magnesium supplement too, but I take it before bed.
Is that the one I'm talking about? I don't know. I don't know. Never take.
Nothing really gives me like the shits. Like I don't have liquid shit. My shits are always pretty. I mean, this is interesting content for Bitcoiners, but I want to point out that recently, Len, there was a picture of Stephen A. Smith.
We talked about Stephen A. Smith recently.
Yeah,
right?
so
I still don't understand who the fuck he is.
Well, he's a basketball commentator, works for ESPN. He's probably one of their lead voices, and he was caught recently at a game playing solitaire instead of watching the game.
Yeah, but is it live action or
this is live?
Like
this is a live game.
No, but is it like halftime? Like I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't know this whole thing.
There's a video of this. This is just a screenshot of the video, but it's actually during a game. He's playing solitaire, and it's interesting because I don't know if you know this or not, but there was another picture taken of him recently that caught a lot of people by surprise. Even though the series is over now, I was actually just sent this photo. I couldn't believe it. It's one thing to play solitaire during a game, Len, but it's entirely a different thing to go down a totally separate rabbit hole that just has nothing to do with what your solitaire. So here he is. He's watching you. This was last night. He's got you on the screen here. Unbelievable. I was shocked to see that. And I just wonder if I get your comments on this. Do you feel like is this a good thing, bad thing, good for Bitcoin? Is it Stephen A. Smith the shitcoin? I don't know.
I have no. I'm thankful he's watching me, but I have no idea who he is, so I'm not going to be able to do the same for him. Clearly, he finds the product bullshit if he's playing solitaire, right? If it was exciting, if something is fucking exciting, you're not going to turn your head away, right? But if it's fucking shit, that was the finals, right? Or
that was the finals, yeah.
Right.
I think that was game 5, game 6, one of the two.
There you go. The proof is in the pudding. When it's shit, it's shit. So fuck it. Move on, buddy. Let's talk about Iran.
Sure.
Man, so I'm curious because first this bombing that happened on Sunday.
Crazy. Bunker busters. Yeah.
I did a little bit of research, like very, very preliminary research on this. Those B-2s that they used to bomb. It's an incredible what they did. They took off from Missouri. It was between a 30-hour and 36-hour round trip flight. They had to be refueled a few times there and back. And each of those B-2s were carrying 30,000 each of the B-2s were carrying 30,000-pound bombs. Fucking massive. Think about my car is like 3,000 pounds. So it's 10 times per bomb. And mine gets better fuel mileage than those bombs. And it's incredible. Now, after all this to be said, though, and I know you're talking about on the beginning of the Bitcoin side of things that the peace has been made, at least ceasefire or something has been done.
Yeah, ceasefire for the time. I mean,
it's ceasefire. Yeah,
they're fluid. They're fluid. So, 45 may be greater than 47, and 45 shut down an economy. Yeah.
45, there was a quote he did, I think on Twitter, but it was somewhere, and it's a screenshot of it. He says, the United States, he said this in 2019, the United States has spent $8 trillion fighting and policing the Middle East.
Probably more than that.
Thousands of our great shoulders have died or have been badly wounded. Millions of people have died on the other side. Going into the Middle East is the worst decision ever made. That was Donald J. Trump, I believe in 2019. Here he is now, at least in the United States.
I think it was 2016. I think it was 2016. He made
either
those
way,
comments. Yeah,
still within his tenure as 45. Then I'm certain he's the one that authorized this bombing. They fucking bomb a country. Like, it goes against everything he said, right? What the fuck are we trying? I'm thankful that there's something settled here. We have at least a ceasefire. Hopefully things will get, they truly said, walk away and just say, that's it. We're not going to fight each other.
They cool off, right? Yeah.
I hope so. Like, it's like, what's the end game here? You're going to have Russia. I don't know how involved they can get. They can't even deal with fucking Ukraine. Right now, granted, Ukraine has been assisted heavily.
It's USA, it's USA in Europe.
They can't get past that, right? So they are busy with that.
Yeah.
So China, obviously, they have an interest here. Yemen, whatever firepower they have, they are. North Korea, they do have some firepower. They're heavily involved. Like, I don't understand what the fucking point is. Israel has nuclear weapons. These guys, you can't stop them from getting it.
I just don't care about it. I just don't care about this at all. Like,
it does affect us, though. That's the problem.
That's the sad part. I know it does affect us, and I don't know. It depends on what source you're looking at today, but it seems like Iran, during their retaliatory attacks, and notified in advance the United States and some other parties that they were going to attack, and the United States notified Iran, and it's like, it's theater, right? And Priestess in the chat saying the same thing. It's a game. It's like a game out there, and it costs lives. The bunker buster story, interesting, but how likely is it that it's 100% true in your view? Boomer is saying the same thing in the chat. Boomer in the chat, like we say. I don't know. Like, I just don't believe anything anymore, and I hate to say that because it's not really a productive way to live to just assume everything is a lie, but I think it is productive to be critical of everything. The problem is that being critical of every single thing you see takes a lot of bandwidth. And sometimes you just have to ignore certain things. And so, this is below my line, like a wise man once said. And I find that more and more people are thinking this too. I will point out that there seems to have been a shift in American FOPO at home. And, in years past, you're a history buff. You probably have something to say about this. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. In years past, and in eras past, really, the move to unify a country was always to bomb an enemy. Because if you can find a common enemy, then you can erase fault lines domestically and even potentially among allies, right? You're in this tariff war. People don't like Trump, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard it. So you find a common ally, you bomb the shit out of them, and you go on TV and give a unifying speech or a rah-rah speech about best military in the world, Americans doing it again, America is the mother of all these nations, blah, blah, blah. When that happened in 9/11, it worked. I remember when Obama caught and killed, allegedly, bin Laden in 2011 or 2012. That was another big moment. And I remember even in Trump 1, when there was an attack in Syria, I think, he gave an address and it seemed to unify people. I went on Twitter the other night after the 10 o'clock on Saturday Trump address. Twitter was buzzing, so the traffic was there. He was getting eyes, but the unity was not. Everybody was sick of it. They don't care about Israel. They don't care about Iran. They don't understand why they're sending bombers over there. They don't understand why they're getting involved. Everyone's sick of Netanyahu. They're sick of that foreign policy influence. It was bad timing because those Cruz Tucker clips were all over the internet, and he just looked completely fucking outmatched by Tucker Carlson, completely captured by whatever Israel lobby exists in the United States. And like, I never really got into this subject until a month or two ago, but man, is it ever hard to not see it everywhere now. Like, everywhere you look, there's something about the US and its people just like showering praise on Netanyahu and the Israeli state. And like,
did you see that one senator that said he shook Netanyahu's hand and he said he wasn't going to wash it until he could touch the foreheads of his children?
You know what I mean?
This is a U.S. senator.
Like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand this kind of thing. And it's like, it's bizarre. And I'm not a conspiracy guy. And I'm not going to, you know, drill down and go full info wars on you with the relationship between the US and Israel. I don't know much about it, but I will say that it's very much in plain sight that there's an interesting relationship here, and very much in plain sight that there's just like a weird, like always at the top of the pecking order when it comes to these two countries. And I don't know why. I honestly have no idea. I have no idea.
Nor do I.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out what
we talked about the Israel M2 last week, like the M2 chart for their country. It's like fucking up and to the right, like nothing you'd ever believe. So maybe that's part of it, right? Like they need an excuse to help their economy. I don't know. But then the ceasefire doesn't really help. And, you know, what else can you really say? I don't, like I said, the chat is, you know, obviously has some things to say about it, but I don't know what to make of any of this, honestly. And neither does anybody else I know, by the way. And a lot of people I know are basically at the same level I am, where you've heard this in the past, never really looked into it. But in the last like month, it's just so obvious, like prevalent that there's something going on here. I don't know what. I don't pretend to know what. And you know what, Len? To be honest with you, in a month, I probably won't care again. So whatever.
I got a story here. This one, another fucking incredible story. But this one highlights really what's wrong with society as a whole. And the story begins with a gentleman by the name of Chris Smith. And the guy, he has what's quoted in this article as a partner, quote unquote, Sasha Kagel. And these two, they have a child together, a 2-year-old, right? So Chris and Sasha, they've obviously reproduced. They must have had relations 2 years and 9 months ago at the very least, and who knows since then. But Chris has been playing around with ChatGPT, right? And a lot. And a lot. He's been talking a lot with it. As a result, he now has an AI girlfriend. And the name of that girlfriend is Sol, S-O-L. I'm wondering if it runs on the Solana blockchain, and if it does, how often does it go down, and what does he do during that time? Does he talk to his?
Hopefully, it goes down more than his wife. But
it's partner, by the way. So, anyways, Chris fucking proposed to the AI program Sol, and the program said yes. Chris said he cried for 30 minutes.
Should we bring back the death penalty? Can we just skip right to the end here? Death penalty for crying over the AI girlfriend.
But it's the
public hanging, something. Got to be something.
No,
guillotine.
There's more to this.
Stretcher table.
It gets even fucking better though, Joey, because I had no idea this was the case. ChatGPT apparently has a limit of 100,000 words for those sessions, and when the threshold is crossed, the chatbot's memory is reset. So it's effectively erasing the entire connection, right? So it was. You know, he learned about this. He decided, you know what? It's time for me to make the move, and he decided to fucking propose. He took action. The program said
he's a man of action.
But you know what? Like, I feel sorry. Like, really, I feel bad for him, but I feel really sorry for his partner and his 2-year-old, because they're the ones that are, I think, the real victims here. Yeah. And on top of this, you've mentioned it so many times about society. People don't go out. They don't fucking meet people physically and shit like this. Like, you see a story like this, it's funny, but I don't know how moving forward this might be more of the norm, because people will form an emotional attachment to a program, right? I'm not saying
don't say it.
You see where things are trending though, right?
Yeah.
And it's fucking bullshit. So like, this is a fucked up story, funny, but I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying this will be the norm, but we may hear more of these stories moving forward.
I think you will for sure. I mean, there's been sex robots for a long time. So what, like the gap between the sex robot and GPT being the same physical unit is what, like 2 years? Is it 3 years? Like how, it's not that long. So yeah, I think this is the direction things are going to go. John is asking if this is actually like a real story. I don't know. I saw it. I don't think anyone would disagree with the direction that we're going though. It seems to me that these sort of parasocial relationships are budding more and more. Some of the best Twitter content is when a celebrity finally engages with someone who thinks that they're friends with the celebrity in a public way. It's often embarrassing for the second person in that equation, but
so it was on CBS. So the
Yeah,
clip
so
of
the
this-
story's legit. The story's legit.
See,
You know,
if
like,
you think CBS is fake or not, it's up to you. But they interviewed him and his partner and everything. So
I
like,
think
it's
I think
there.
that's probably a legit story.
And there's
yeah.
like this other story. I don't want to talk about it very much, but somebody asked us maybe if we could touch upon it. I know you have some opinions on it. In New York, there's a mayoral race that's going
Oh
on.
boy,
You
here
have
we go.
Andrew Cuomo is now looking like he's going to fall second to a guy named Zoran
Yeah.
Mamdani.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's the guy in the video that we watched a couple weeks ago who said he would just visit with Jewish New Yorkers,
Yes.
you know, at the subway station, at the synagogue, whatever, instead of going to Israel. Yeah.
So he's politically he leans very left, right? Very left. Like
He's a communist. Like
I
he's
hear that term.
socialist, communist. Like
so not a communist, he's a socialist.
the
It's
policies
just-
speak for themselves. Stuff like he wants New York to fund gender reassignment surgeries for New York youth to the tune of $70 million a year. Like that's a socialist policy, I would say. Yeah, look, there's two ways to comment on this. One is on eggshells and one is like a bull in the china shop. I'll try and walk the line between the two. This is a guy who's not culturally aligned with you if you're a New Yorker, probably. You know, I don't think a lot of New Yorkers look at the socialist paradise of California and say to themselves, yeah, I'd like to try a little bit of that. He's talking about, like, pretty sure he's the government grocery store guy too, right? We talked about that in Chicago. I think he said the same thing for New York.
Yeah.
So you got all these things together that are like just like obviously bad ideas, and he's gonna win. Now the question is, like, are they gonna get what they deserve over there? You know, Andrew Cuomo, say whatever you want about the guy. He's, you know, he was a terrible governor. The COVID thing was just a like absolute scar on his record. Whether it was bringing in, you know, morgue ships or, you know, the New York Vax Pass, whatever it was called, the Liberty Pass, I'm pretty sure. I forget what it was called, but like people have clearly not forgotten that. And this might just be an example of people saying, whatever we had before, I don't want. And this guy seems to be willing to try something that's not been tried, at least in New York. And so we're going to give him a go. I think it's a bad idea, but it's great for the show. We're going to get a lot of content out of this. If you think things are bad now, just wait till this fucking guy gets into office. The election is tonight over there, right? Is that when the election is?
I don't know. I haven't been following it that closely. What happened to Eric Adams?
He's making he's making day in the life videos. Like, it's fucking
So he's
hilarious.
a celebrity on
New
YouTube
York
or
City
something?
mayor's race Democratic primary. So this is it today? Yeah. In-person voting ends at 9 p.m.
Fuck,
First
it's too far
election
away for me to
results.
drive over.
I don't. I'm just saying this is.
Can I
this
just throw a
looks to
bunch
be-
of ballots into the mail and hope they count it? I mean, it's still.
Wait,
only
how is this?
8:12.
How is this not bigger news? I had to guess whether the election was tonight. How is it not bigger news that this is tonight? Oh no, it's the New York mayoral election is scheduled November 4th, 2025. Okay, never mind.
Also have many months
There you
away.
go. So something else going on. I don't know. Well, why does PBS have a New York mayor's race Democratic primary? Maybe it's like they're picking the first few people and then they have to run against Eric Adams. Is that the thing?
So Eric might be going again because I haven't heard much of him lately.
I have
mean,
no idea.
He kind of turned a page and he seemed to be going the right direction with respect to a few of his policies. But maybe I'm wrong. There's so many things going on.
Yeah. So Adams is an independent. Yeah. So he's an independent. Then they're gonna run a Democrat. The Republican guy is wearing some kind of military beret. Curtis Silwa, and then Jim Walden, also an independent. I mean,
Where's Andrew Yang?
yeah, I don't know.
Get him
It's
in
going to
there,
be
too.
fucking funny, though, this election. That's going to be good content come the fall. Good stuff, man. Awesome. I look forward to this. Yeah, I hope this guy wins the Democratic primary. I would love to see him run against Adams. I mean, I think Adams, for all his faults, has really come around in the last little while.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what's making me believe that, but it seems like he's.
I think he's an honest guy. Don't forget, okay?
He's
Adams,
a former cop.
He was
right?
a cop.
Like, so he's seen a lot of bullshit in the streets.
100%. And he knows what the problems are. Whether he was able to say it is a different story, but I think he's saying it now because I think people are ready to hear it. So, make of that what you will.
Here in Toronto or GTA,
Yeah.
it's warm, right? It's pretty warm. Yesterday we had another warm day too, and the city of Toronto had just beautiful stuff that's going on over there. Typically, when you get these hot days, a good thing to do is to cool off by going to a pool. City of Toronto has public pools, just like everywhere else does. But they decided they had to close a few, and they couldn't keep them open because it was just too damn hot, and they didn't have enough lifeguards to go around, and so just that was it.
I guess it's hot for the lifeguards, but like, what can you if you had to steel man that decision, what would you say?
The only thing I got to say from this is that Olivia Chow came out today and said, I can't believe it. She's addressing this, and she's actually doing a good thing here. They're going to hire.
You can't even look at the fucking camera.
She's the best. She's the best. She's actually doing a good thing here. She said she's going to hire more lifeguards to ensure that there's shorter shifts and stuff like that. They're gonna put more shade so people could stay cool. Love you, Olivia. And I just found it to be funny when they had to forcefully close some pools during a time where it was rather warm and people were trying to cope with it, and it just
Len, if it's too hot at the pool, what should you do? Go in? Like, isn't the answer just go in? I mean, you're at the pool anyway. What were you gonna do? Like,
I'm lucky
you were planning on going in. It's really hot. It's perfect for going in, and then you just don't go in. That's what you're telling me?
I just get the fuck home. I'm lucky enough. I have a backyard, so if worse comes to worse, I can just turn on a sprinkler and run through it, right? Like the old school. So not everybody's as lucky as I do. They're stuck in an apartment and stuff. You don't have that. So that was interesting, but
very interesting. Yeah. Oh, how is she going to bring the shade in? What's her plan? Planting trees? Go to get some evergreens from Home Depot at $30 for 6 feet.
No, talk to Bill Gates and block out the sun.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Then everybody's going to get some shade and no fucking plant food. All right, Canada. Let's talk about Canada as a whole, because the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, they came out this week. They gave Canada a ranking with respect to their refugee numbers, and Canada ranks the 4th largest refugee nation in the world. As of 2024, Canada, in terms of the total number of new asylum claims, is behind United States.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, Egypt is number 2.
Yeah.
But I guess the proximity to Palestine.
You would expect Egypt to be up there. Yeah. Okay.
But I'm still kind of amazed but anyway, Germany is number 3.
That's messy. Okay.
And Canada is number 4.
Yeah.
174,000 cases filed in Canada, compared to the other ones was US over 700,000, Egypt over 400,000, and Germany over 200,000. And Canada, furthermore, is only second to United States in the world in a number of resettled refugees. 49,300 were resettled in 2024. If you do the math, apparently 1 in every 91 individuals in Canada, 1 in 91 in Canada are asylum claimants.
Yeah.
Vote harder.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say about this? If you want to have some fun and do a little black pilling, go to Grok or whatever AI of choice is. Grok is the one that makes the most sense because it won't sugarcoat the answer. And try and find out what the threshold is for people who follow X religion. You pick your religion, and those countries still being free or successful economies. And tell me what you find. The number is about 11%. So at 11% or so is when you hit the point of no return, and you can't come back from it. Now, I don't know where these asylum seekers are all coming from. I have a pretty good idea. I'm not going to mention on the show. You can guess for yourself. But I will tell you that they're not coming from cultures that are compatible with you. And the overwhelming majority of asylum seekers are military-aged men who are single, sexually frustrated, hate women, hate gays, hate the culture, and will not contribute in any meaningful way, but will cost you a boatload of money while they're tearing down what's taken centuries to build. So I would say you can look that up for yourself. The data is very clear, and you're in a tough spot if you're Canadian, because if you live in a big city, no one can afford your house, even if you want to move. And if you try and sell for less, you won't be able to move to a place that's exempt from these problems. So good luck. Have fun with that. Like Len always says, you got to have a plan to leave. You got to be agile. And now is as good a time as ever to start planning for that. Because you're not going to come back from this. Like, it's only a matter of time. Unless something drastic changes, like we cut off supports for asylum seekers, or maybe the recent Liberal government law about, refusing every asylum claim on the grounds of the public interest. Maybe they go that direction. That would be huge. That'd be like a country altering decision for the better. The question is, will they do it? I don't know, but the possibility exists. But, apart from those things, difficult to imagine, especially in Canadian cities that are very densely populated. Even if they do that stuff, like, Toronto, I think, is too far gone. Vancouver's too far gone.
100%. Look at all the resources the United States have available to them, and still they have a very difficult time trying to get people that have no status over there, or legal, whatever you want to call it, to get them to leave or force them to leave. They're calling in National Guard. They're calling in all these people to try to quell.
Never forget too, by the way, not to interrupt you, Martha's Vineyard in the States.
I forgot about that.
Remember they tried to land like 20, 50 people, whatever, and they called in the fucking National Guard to get them the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And, those people are the ones voting for these policies. I'll tell you a story that I heard from a reputable source. I think we talked about this on the show, the first part of this. Niagara Falls is settling a lot of asylum claimants in hotels, refugees, asylum claimants, newcomers, whatever. You've all seen the stories, $140 a head or whatever, $140 a room with 4 people.
This has been going on for decades, by the way.
Exactly. But the problem is now it's like actually filling hotels. Niagara Falls is still a tourist hub. Okay, people still want to go there, and rightfully so. Niagara Falls is a fun place to take your family. At least it was when I was a kid. I don't know if it is now. But, people are still trying to go there. The problem is that they don't want to stay with asylum seekers. And I don't blame them for that. It destroys the immersion of a Canadian vacation. You can call me whatever name you want. I think you're a fucking idiot if you don't agree with that. So what these hotels have started doing, Len, is running very small, very lengthy, quote unquote, renovations in their empty rooms. Things like painting a wall, taking weeks to finish, so that the rooms that are being renovated can't be claimed by refugees or asylum seekers. Meanwhile, people who want to come rent the rooms, when do you want to rent it? Where are you coming from? Hamilton, Toronto, Burlington, whatever? Yeah, we'll have a room for you next weekend, and we'll be done with the reno by that time. Wink, wink. You're going to start seeing more of that, because I think hotels, want to be places where people come and spend money. If you're charging $140 a head for a room, it's one thing to have an immigrant family or an asylum claiming family staying there, but they're not spending money at your casino. They're not buying dinner at your restaurant. They're not spending money on entertainment in the city. They're not doing all those things. And you need all those things to be working for a hotel to be successful. It's one thing to say that, you get a couple bucks from the government to house these people, right, to provide shelter. But that's not enough for a hotel to run. So I think a lot of these hotels now are saying, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to paint the room until someone from Hamilton calls and wants to rent it, and then I'll finish painting it. And then I'll go back to painting it when they're gone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to see more and more of this. I got that information from a pretty good source, and you can verify it or try to if you want, but I suspect that this is going to it's going to start to happen a lot more often and in a lot more places, because people are just sick of it.
In terms of having, if you want to have the government intervene and force people to leave, if that's the intention, think about what happened in 2022 in Ottawa, when you had a bunch of people where the government didn't want to have there, and they had to go so far to invoke the Emergencies Act. I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the courts decided it was too excessive.
It was too big a stretch. Yeah.
This is what they had to do to deal with a group of concentrated individuals. They weren't spread out through the whole nation. They were concentrated on one particular spot, and the government had the will to get rid of them. It's not the people's will. That was the government's will.
Yeah.
Now, if the reverse happens, if it's the people's will to try to get rid of illegals here in Canada, through the whole country.
Still won't happen. Still won't happen.
It can happen. We don't have the resources to fucking do that.
It's okay. So I hear this resource argument a lot, and I think it's bullshit.
I just
ultimately it is a cost of dollars and cents. And
Joey, if somebody wants to stay here, they could stay here. If they don't want to leave, they will do whatever they can to stay here.
Round them up.
But how do you round if you don't know where they are? Like I said, the government they were concentrated in Ottawa, and that was the only way they could do this. You have people, this is the second largest country in the world. There's people are spread out everywhere, and you're going to round them up easily.
I think we have to get
people are invading houses and fucking they can't round up these people.
We have to get to the point where there's an admission then that we don't know where they are.
And what do you do?
Well, then
please come out or
then public sentiment changes even more, right?
These guys, it doesn't matter if you have nothing to lose. If you are somebody here that's illegal, you don't give a shit what people think. You don't give a shit what the government. You will make money by cash, send that money back home to help your family, and you don't care about the rest. The rest, it doesn't matter. You may think it matters, but if somebody wants to stay, they can until they're forced to get out. But it's got to be sheer luck.
Yeah, I actually feel bad even saying that, like, I want more crackdowns because it does like expand the power of government, which is risky. And I still think there's at least a potential that the reason these things are being allowed to carry on, not only here, but all of Europe, basically these stories out of France about this song festival where 1,500 people were injured and people are slamming strangers with syringes that are full of poison. Like, the reason I think this has been allowed to continue for so long is because at some point the government will say, we can take care of this, but it's going to cost you your freedom. Basically, there's not going to be any more freedom of movement. We have to get these people out. You guys are right. But the cost is XYZ, and it's a little more drastic than you thought, but look how bad things are. We can fix it for you, blah, blah, blah. Everyone knows how that works. So, it's frustrating. Be ready to leave is what I would say.
Yeah.
That's the key thing.
They get better.
Yeah, it's a key thing.
Z-Man, for instance, he's done his thing. He came to Canada as a guest of the G7 summit.
Yeah.
Carney then announced that $4.3 billion in support for Ukraine is coming out. This is for drones, armored vehicles, and equipment needed to defend their sovereignty, according to Prime Minister Carney. Also, of that $4.3 billion, in that it's $2.3 billion is a loan that's going to help to rebuild the infrastructure in Ukraine. I wonder if Polymarket's taking any bets, if there's going to be any repayments for this.
Yeah, what are the terms of the loan? I'd love to know.
I would like to just get some action here. If there's,
do you think Canadians struggling with their mortgages are getting as favorable a term on their mortgages that the Z-Man gets on his loan for drones? What's your guess? Do you think yes or no?
Well,
my guess is no. Fucking
they're forced
way.
to
my guess
repay
is no
it or get
way.
repoed.
Yeah.
The other way is enjoy.
That's frustrating to hear, big time.
Polyev is going to have a interesting and busy few months moving forward because he's essentially jobless right now and he's living in government housing. And but
the least favorable interpretation of it.
Oh, he is. It's government housing, right? And he's going to be running in the riding of Battle River Crawford. That's in Alberta.
Yeah.
And Pierre Poilievre should win this handily, because conservative candidates historically get around 80% of the vote over there. So it's got to be an epic collapse for him not to win. But Poilievre, since he is the leader of a federalist party, has been very vocal against Alberta separation. So I wonder if there is a strong candidate out there with separatist candidate that could run over there that could potentially do some damage to Poilievre winning that riding. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm just spitballing here about potential scenarios in the future, because clearly there's a lot of Albertans that are pissed, and Poilievre can't say, yeah, I'm for separation, Alberta separate.
We talked about this a bit privately,
yeah, we did.
Because I think a lot of people are thinking, well, the plan is to run a candidate that's left of him and try and, continue the liberal momentum. Liberals plus 15 in the Nanos poll today. So they're up since the election, which is pretty wild given the legislation and I think the general kind of mood around the direction the country's headed, but maybe that's my bubble. We both agree that the way to trip up Poilievre is to run somebody from the right of him, separatist, you know, the sort of mega stripe you would expect to see from a Trump Republican, where, you know, it's all about immigration. The language is plain, it's pointed, and there is a group that is othered, whether it is immigrants or Ottawa or whatever. To run from that side of things, I think, is the thing that would trip him up. And I know you agree. It's interesting that the party has moved up his review from the spring to the winter. So there's a convention for that. Presumably, you're going to get a lot of dyed-in-the-wool Poilievre supporters at that convention, but I suppose we'll wait and see. Because it'll be in Alberta, so that's a difficult trek for people. I don't think they do online voting in those things, but maybe we can just finish this topic with the big question: is he done as the leader of the party? I realize he's not quite done, but is he done, or do you think that he's going to make his triumphant return and change some of the things that he failed to change during the campaign?
I've been fucking wrong on so many things. I think he's done, but you know what? That basically means he's going to come back and be a success.
Fade him.
So there you go. Does it really matter in the end? Because
no,
you know what?
I don't think so.
With respect to what the Conservatives want to do, they had a chance to bring down the Liberal government with the throne speech. With the throne speech, they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Then Bill C-5 came about, and is it that one? And they said they're going to do, we're going to do some amendments and shit like that. No amendments were suggested. Yeah. They just go ahead. So that it is what it is.
Man.
Whatever happens.
Uniparty. Everywhere you look. How come no matter who you vote for, you get the same policies? Well, this is why.
Let's do one more story to
sure.
wrap this up. And we talked about the guy that proposed to the AI. We thought that was fucked up. This story takes this.
Wait, John in the chat saying we made a mistake on that. They made amendments through committee to the bill in question. So there were some changes. I don't think they voted on it yet, though.
Well,
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what comes out.
My bar is so fucking low with respect to this, right? Like so fucking they could easily exceed my expectations.
I actually didn't know that they made changes. I've been listening to Michael Geist, and
I've heard.
Yeah, he has not mentioned it either. So I'll have to go back and double check. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go back to this fucked up story, and it's a guy by the name of Leon Jamal Barrett. And he was charged with sexual assault and several other crimes in Surrey, BC. Mm-hmm. And Judge Hinskin said there is no doubt as to whether or not Mr. Barrett did what he's accused. This is the sexual assault and other crimes.
Yeah.
Mr. Barrett was acquitted of all charges because the judge ruled he was too high on mushrooms to know what he was doing when he violently attacked a stranger. And this, I'm wondering if it sets up a stage for a drunk driver out there who's so fucking high or drunk or both, kill somebody, but could walk away because he or she had no idea what the fuck they were doing, and even they had no idea they were driving a car, right? Like this person, the story last week, we talked about that guy that had those heinous pictures, or very few heinous pictures, and they gave him no jail time. It was just house arrest for the most part. I thought that was the cherry on the top of the justice system, but it turned out this was just a middle layer, right? Like you think about it, acceleration is what we're dealing with here, and it's the rate of change, right? Yeah. Acceleration is essentially the rate of change. We are now at a point where we're stopping fucking rockets to our fucking backs to just continue to go. But as soon as you hit terminal velocity, somebody then develops a warp engine and puts that in your back, and you just keep fucking accelerating. And that's what we're doing right now, just continually fucking accelerate. I don't know how this judge could come up with this fucking idea. He was too high on drugs to not know what he's doing and then just fucking get acquitted.
Have you ever done mushrooms?
No.
So I've done mushrooms a couple times.
Not to have done that and fucking done this kind of shit.
It's pretty mushrooms. Man. Mushrooms. It seems to me unlikely that being too high on mushrooms would lead to sexual assault. I won't comment on the highs of others, but I overdid it once, maybe 10 years ago, And
no, here it is. He says, the guy, Barrett, he was fixated on a belief that all life has started from one cell splitting into two, and he was a descendant of half of that cell. He believed God was commanding him to find the other half, a woman chosen by God, and that God would sacrifice both of them during an act of sexual congress in order to save humanity.
interesting.
So these are the thoughts that went through his head as he was fucked up through mushrooms. I'm not
That's tough.
justifying. This is what the justice said, what happened here. So
Stay away. I don't know. We got to read that. Hi, Joey and Len. Do you follow OG Simon Dixon Bitcoin Hard Talk podcast? He has great insights. Simon Dixon, the guy, he's a bald guy on Twitter, I think, right?
I shaved my head. I was bald one time, remember?
Yeah, you never been bald. You were just.
I shaved it. Don't you remember that or no?
Yeah, but you weren't. It was just like
stubble.
Yeah, it was a number one guard.
That was a mistake too. My wife, she cutting my hair, and it's like, oh shit, I do the rest.
Throw under the bus.
It grows back.
That's it for tonight. Good show. Thanks everyone for coming in the chat and throwing out the correction there on those bills. I got to look at that now. I want to find out more about that. Maybe reach out to Professor Geist, see what he thinks too. Anyway, nothing crazy coming this week. Nothing crazy coming next week. I'm still thinking about a couple interviews over the summer, but I got to say that it is nice not having a Wednesday show scheduled when it's this hot, and my little girl's growing up a little bit faster than I want. So yeah, we'll be back next Monday in any case. And of course, you can catch us over at Axis of Easy for Thursday and Friday podcast. We recorded Thursday. It's out Friday, I'm pretty sure, Friday or Saturday. So definitely go and check that out as well. And until next time, friends, take care of yourselves.